bread of Altamura, a town of Apulia in the province of Bari, comes from far away. Its journey goes through centuries, hiding in the folds of history and reaching us with its scent of wheat, water, and sun. The surrounding hills of the Murgia, where Altamura is located, is sown thanks to the hard work of the farmers producing the golden spikes from which you get durum wheat, the basic substance which is used to make one of the most renowned bread in both Italy and all over the world. The goodness and the genuineness of this product was recognized in Europe and awarded the mark DOP in the product category Bakery and Baked Foodstuffs. This recognition, DOP, was finally ruled on the 19th July 2003 with the publication of the official Gazette of the European Union. Durum wheat, salt, water, and yeast base or sourdough yeast are the few and simple ingredients useful to the preparation of the bread of Altamura, whose main characteristic is its firmness and hard crust, which it can be kept soft and delicious for many days. In ancient times, the significant production of bread in the town was intended to meet the food needs of a population that had derived its income mainly from sheep farming since the Middle Ages. Together with sheep farming, the extensive cultivation of cereals was basically done by hard-working, low-paid farmhands who worked for large landowners since these farmhands lived on the farm where they worked. Every fortnight they went into town where their families lived in order to change their linen and to get vital necessities. The main necessity was bread, whose main feature was not its freshness but its durability. Large loaves of bread, varying in size and weighing anywhere from 2 or 5 kilos, were kneaded to the traditional form of the overlapped bread and the soft bread. These forms were obtained by kneading wheat flour, later replaced by the durum wheat flour with salt, water, and yeast base, a natural yeast obtained by the natural fermentation when mixing flour with water. This little heap of sourdough was jealously kept, as if it were the treasure of the house. The durum wheat which was used belonged to the local town, considering that the local output of wheat was relatively high. Similarly, the grinding of the wheat occurred in the town, which we can see in the prosperous milling activity characterizing the town both then and now. Until not long ago, people used to knead the bread dough at home while the baking was done in public bakeries. This method dates back to the beginning of the contemporary age and can be documented in the statutes of the town corporations. Citizens were not allowed to cook bread in their houses, otherwise they had to pay significant fines. Bread baking was to take place in wood-burning public bakeries on payment of duty. At home, women prepared the dough in the wooden bread chest, mixing the yeast base with the carefully sifted flour, warm water, and salt. The bread dough was kneaded with both ends until it was stiff. Then it was left to rise. In order to warm it, the uncooked bread was wrapped in cloth and heavy blankets and put on the bed surrounded by the heat of the wool. Symbolically, it was said the bread on the bed had to grow as if it were a baby in the cradle. The bread dough was then rolled out again and divided into pieces of risen dough. These were collected house to house by the baker's boys, who lined them up on a long, narrow plank which was carried on their shoulders to the wood-burning ovens. The bakers completed the kneading of the dough, giving it the final form, the characteristic loaf of bread. In order to distinguish each loaf of bread produced by the different families, the baker used to write the initials of the owner on the bread before baking them.
Nowadays, the productive methods are partly changed because the modern milling activity is very often characterized on a large-scale production in order to satisfy both the needs of the local and foreign markets. Currently, bread is made in bakeries with modern mechanical tools, as for instance the kneading machines, which are able to work large quantities of raw materials. However, a lot of importance is given to manual labor and bakers' experience. In bakeries, in order to make loaves of bread, all the ingredients, including semolina of durum wheat, water, yeast, and salt, are worked in a helical or pluging mixer for about 20-25 minutes. The dough is left to stand for 2 or 3 hours. Then the dough is weighed and several loaves of bread are formed. Now the final form is given to the dough and it is left to rise under cloth for the second. Characteristic hardness of this kind of wood allows the oven to reach and maintain high temperatures about 250 degrees. About 1 hour is needed to bake the loaves of bread in the wood burning oven, while about 1 hour and a quarter is needed to bake them in a 210 degrees electrical oven.
The growing of cereals on the Murgia dates back to remote times. Since the Neolithic age, wheat and other cereals were grown, and from their milling, man was able to get the first rough flour from which the first loaves of bread were made. The most ancient origins of this precious product can be found in this kind of bread. The most ancient evidence.
How and why was the exhibition at the origins of bread born? The exhibition was first held in 2005 thanks to a ministerial initiative of the Ministry of National Heritage and Culture, Food and Tastes of Ancient Italy, addressed to all the Italian regions in the presentation of the most peculiar produce, and which takes into account the fact that in 2003 Altamura's bread was defined DOP with registered designation of origin, a very important recognition of the role of this bread in our local territory. Our bread is an extraordinary product. Was the historical research able to reconstruct and recuperate evidence in the process of Altamura's bread production? Historical research was able to reconstruct production in ancient times, in the prehistorical production, not the production of Altamura's bread today, because clearly we are talking about in completely different centuries, distant from each other. At the same time, the research was able to show us that ever since 5000 BC, people in this area used objects and tools for the production of seeds of different cereals, emmer, wheat, and legumes, which were useful in making a kind of bread totally different from the one made today. Recently, modern research has defined the process of the existing bread making production of the existing bread. What are the most significant objects on display in this exhibition? Surely the objects which were used to work the land, including the small hatchets of polished stone, the small sickles which still shine due to use, the stone mills used to grind seeds, and above all, the burnt seeds of wheat and barley found in a Neolithic village in the province of Brindisi, which tell us about production and the size of the seeds.
We can say, therefore, that the long history of the bread of Altamura, which leads us back in time as the taste of everyday life, where the basic need is food, as always benefit from the raw materials of the territory of the product we know very well, the dough bread of Altamura. In past times, it was the farmers' and shepherds' fragrant food, nowadays used to prepare finer food, as sublimated simple ingredients as water and wheat, making it a real form of art.